Today, I'm going to show you the 4 workflow patterns that, if you understand, will let you solve 90% of business automation problems inside N8N, even if you're just starting out. I've personally built over 150 automations for clients without needing to learn every single node or get into complex coding. But most people get stuck trying to learn everything about N8N when all they really need to know is understanding a few key patterns that businesses will happily pay for and come up again and again. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through each of those patterns with real business examples and show you exactly how to build them inside N8N. Let's first talk about pattern 1, which is an automation that captures information as it comes in. So as it sounds, it captures real-time data that's perhaps on the end of a form on our website, and it takes that and does something useful with it in real time. So it follows a trigger which activates it. So this could be something like a Google form. We then are going to process the information in some way and maybe perform some data transformation. We then might store the information in a database or a sheet or update our database. And then finally, we might even notify ourselves, because actually if it's real-time data coming in, we might want to take actions depending on certain scenarios here. So some good examples of this that I've seen used in my clients are a lead capture system. So you might have a website set up where we've got a Google form and somebody signs up to our email list, or somebody signs up for our project survey. And actually immediately upon them completing that action, they are put into our CRM, whichever CRM we're using. And you might have an email alert. So say a project is over a certain value, you might have an email alert that comes off the back of that. This could also be content repurposing. So as soon as I produce a YouTube video, for example, it might take a transcript of that and then convert that into social posts. So this is something that I might want to do in real time. If I've published something in one place, or you've published something in one place, you take some information in real time and actually immediately publish it or repurpose that elsewhere. Or it might be customer feedback. So say we take a survey, we might do analysis on the response to that survey and then get back to the customer with a message that's tailored to their response, or send ourselves a report of that happening as well. So the value to clients in this sense is effectively eliminating our manual data entry. So rather than having to run through our results of our lead capture system, this can be done completely automatically. It ensures no leads are missed. So as soon as the data comes in, they are processed. It also ensures that they are followed up with consistently and in a timely manner. So we make sure to activate those customers in real time. And you see a lot of these systems already built into our CRMs or our email management systems. They will already have some sort of workflows, but we can also create those in N8N where they're not inbuilt to the system. And the advantage of doing this in N8N is we can connect it to all of our other systems as well. So as we spoke about, some common triggers would be form submissions on a website. It might be an email that's coming to our inbox. It might be new entries on a spreadsheet that we monitor, or website contact forms. So I'll show you an example now. And this is a high-level example of something that I've seen commonly in client use cases. And that is the one we spoke about most here, which is a new lead filling in a website form. So you might have fill out, which is, I just go to fill out, a way to create a form on your website, and we can effectively templatize any different forms here. But if we have somebody signing up our website, we might basically, if we are project-based or agency-based, we get them to fill out a form saying, what projects are you looking for? What budget do you have? What's your name? What's your email? So we have some sort of trigger that's a website form. Or we could do that through N8N's inbuilt form submission, which we'll look at in a second. We then maybe process that data. So based on the responses, we are going to take a route A or route B. So for example, we might say, for any customers that have a budget size over a certain amount, we want to take one action with these. And actually, if it's a high amount, we want to send them a personalized response, or we want to get them back to them within X amount of time, 12 hours. Whereas route B, we might say for our lower value customers, actually they're lower priority in our list. We're going to add them to the CRM, but we're not going to take any further action. Or you could have a different follow-up chain with that there. So we've got here an example with a form submission. So I filled out this form as a test, and effectively this would be for my AI automation agency. I might ask them what their name is, what problems are they looking to solve. So here I put a very vague answer of a customer service chatbot. What is your email? What is your budget? And then we record information like submitted at. So I take that information on my website, and if they are a high value lead, let's say 6K plus with a drop down, then we can route that to say, okay, if the budget is 6K plus or equal to 6K plus, then that's going to be true. And we're going to take them up route A. And like we spoke about, what we're going to do is we're going to put them into our CRM, which in this case, we're just using Airtable as an example. And that that's going to then record all of our website form entries inside here. But we've also then got an additional step, which is actually maybe we want to send ourselves notifications saying actually we've received a high value project. Now, this is a simplified view of a process that a client might want, but the whole pattern is actually just effectively capturing real-time information, taking that information and doing some processing on it, like filtering a route, and then storing it somewhere like our CRM, and then notifying ourselves so that we can take action immediately and keep those customers or try to convert those customers. So that's pattern one, capturing info as it comes in. Pattern two is almost the opposite of that, which is instead for information that's not super timely, we might have a routine or scheduled check, and therefore we can batch process that information. So not all information needs to be processed in real time. So pattern number two runs a check on a schedule and takes an action when needed. So you can think of this as a cron job or a time triggered event. This might be once a day, once a week. We're going to check some conditions and pull data from that. And then we're going to process updates. So like I said, it's something or used in areas where we don't need immediate responses. And some examples here might be inventory monitoring. So once a week, we might check our stock levels, or once a day. And then actually based on some check conditions, we might alert ourselves. We might have competitor price tracking, which isn't going to change every hour or every day. We don't need to spend a lot of money running these automations to check it all the time. Instead, we might check once a week, compare our prices and give ourselves a report or an alert. And then social media, we might say, okay, based on the last weeks of posts, what were the performance metrics for those posts, and generate a weekly social media performance report that we can then use in our weekly meetings. And some other examples here are payroll, a month-end payroll. The pay period ends, you batch process those payments via Stripe. Or you might have content that actually you prepare on a weekly basis. And then there is a scheduled trigger once a day, once a week to actually go into that content distribution table and pull the right content, etc. So the value here is actually we make data-driven decisions without the manual work of having to do that every single week. We never miss important changes or opportunities, but it's also used for proactive problem prevention. So when we mention things like inventory monitoring, we're able to keep on top of things without having to add it to our business as usual to-do list every single day. Some common schedules here are time triggers. In fact, mostly time triggers for this. And we'll show you two examples of this on the right-hand side. Let me just activate these nodes. Great. So this is an example where we are actually doing competitor research. So perhaps daily or weekly at 8 a.m., we are pulling our competitors to a sheet, or from a sheet rather. So we have our competitor names in one column down here. And what we're effectively trying to do, we've got the website URLs as well. And what we want to do is pull a detailed report on their market position, their product portfolio, pricing strategy, corporate updates, growth metrics, and just a general overview of our competitors. And you can make this more specific with your business use case. But what we're then going to do is effectively in bulk, take the list of competitors, go to the websites and actually scrape information around those websites. So we've got two sources of HTTP request information here, Perplexity and Tavily, which both go and grab some news information around that competitor from the website. So you're tasked with analyzing competitor using publicly available data. Your objective is to create a detailed competitive intelligence report, passes in the URL, it goes to the website, it talks about the different things that it should grab, and then we're merging that info together. And actually in this case, we would, instead of taking the raw data that might be quite unusable, using AI to just supplement that and say, this is the research we've generated, summarize it, and the news articles as well from Tavily, summarize it and output that in our sheet. And this might appear something like this, where we have an output from May 2024 or any recent outputs from 2025, etc., that go into our research. So it's not something that needs to be done in a timely manner, but actually what we're doing is actually on a schedule, taking that information, going and doing some research in bulk, and then putting that into our sheet at the end. Another example we have down here is one that's used so commonly across my school community, which is actually backing up your old workflows. So this is an internal use case where at 5 p.m. every day, we're going to get all of our previous backup files from our Google Drive or our GitHub, depending on your method of choice. We're going to move those to an old folder so that we have like an archive of all the old saves. We're going to call our N8N instance and actually pull our backups here. And we can actually run this workflow here quickly, and it will return all of the N8N workflows. It will then move that data into our Google Drive. So what we're doing is on a daily basis, we're automatically backing up everything inside our instance here. And I'm not going to continue running that because we've got 162 workflows there and it's backing up daily. So the importance here is that this doesn't need to be done in individually in real time. And actually, we're going to do this in bulk. So this is batch processing. What we then have is a really common pattern where actually a lot of businesses come to tools like N8N specifically for this use case, which is system synchronization. So the two patterns above that we spoke about were all about timely responses. System synchronization also includes timely responses. So it might be in real time, it might be on a schedule, or it might be off the back of a webhook. But the importance here is that we're able to connect two systems that don't usually talk to each other. So this pattern connects two different tools that don't normally interact and keeps them in sync, especially where it's critical to keep those in sync. So it commonly follows this webhook/trigger. So one event might happen in another software that triggers our automation flow. We're then going to do some data processing, as we always do, data transformation, data processing, or just simply sending the data one way. And then we're going to send the response back to the systems on both sides. So a clear example of this would be payment processing. So if on our website, we're capturing payments in Stripe and we have a SaaS product that we want to give access to our actual product as soon as somebody is paid, rather than manually assigning them an entrance for that. As soon as somebody's paid, we'd have a webhook event sent to our N8N environment, and then we'd update the permissions, take that customer data, update the permissions in our database so that they can immediately access our SaaS product, for example. And then we might email them to say, you now have access, here's how you log in, etc. This might be something like event registration. So somebody fills out a form, they pay, we then send them the details via the calendar. So normally we wouldn't have our form connected to our calendar and ticket email, or our email system sending the ticket, so we can connect those two together. Or it might be order fulfillment. So somebody is shopping on an e-commerce store. We then want to print a shipping label automatically based on the order that's come through, or process their information in a certain way, send them tracking details. So you can see clearly how this system synchronization would keep all of our data flowing in real time between systems that don't usually talk to each other. And this has huge value to clients. So it eliminates the copy paste and errors between the systems. We've talked about errors, and it creates seamless customer experiences, especially if you're operating a software product, you want to give immediate access. Or if you're just selling something to a customer, you want to give real-time information. And some common connections there are shopping carts for fulfillment, forms for payment processing, CRM to email marketing. So some CRMs have built-in email workflows, but actually you might want to do something that's above and beyond what they offer integrated. And then booking systems to calendars, so immediately processing that information for your customer. On the right-hand side here, we've got a clear example using a Stripe webhook. So what we might do in this example is actually for a new customer that pays, we might take a Stripe payment here, and I've not set up the credential here, but payment intent succeeded. So we take the data from a previous payment. We then get the Stripe customer information. And the reason we get that information is we want to basically pull the email, the name, and the product purchased, and then effectively set them up in our accounting software. So we want to create an invoice for that customer, and we would get the QuickBooks customer here and then say, okay, does that customer already exist under those customer details? If they exist, then we're going to take route A, which is actually updating the access. Say we're using a SaaS product, updating their SaaS access or credentials or anything like that inside our database, which in this case is Superbase. And then, like we said, we might send them an email notification saying you've got a new access. Or if they don't exist, then we're going to need to create them as a new customer and then also actually give them access. So what we do is actually have this step as well in here where we'd actually also give them access. But this is just a demonstration of a flow that follows this system synchronization and shows you that actually if one system receives a payment or has an update, then another system might need an immediate change. Otherwise, we could cause errors between those systems. And I'm sure you've seen that on many use cases. So this one is a really powerful pattern. The fourth and final pattern that we're going to discuss before we discuss why this is actually important and relevant to you is taking a manual process and making it smarter with AI. So N8N, it now positions itself as an AI workflow automation platform. So this is becoming more and more prevalent, especially if you look on the jobs posted on Upwork and the jobs being requested. AI is obviously taking off. And this pattern effectively adds AI to a process that's traditionally manual to make it easier, smarter, or just less manual. So this might look like a trigger, which could be anything we've discussed previously. We're going to pull a set of data. We're then going to process that data using AI. And we'd only process that data using AI where we need some sort of judgment there. And then we might take an action off the back of it. So an example here might be a customer support ticket router. So a ticket comes in to our support software. We're going to use AI to classify the sentiment or perhaps check FAQs to see if we've got the answer already. And then based on that classification, situation, say it's an urgent query, we might assign that to a route, which is maybe we need human intervention, or maybe the bot can go back with some answers there. We might have a content calendar where we take business info and we're able to then generate a content calendar based on what things we traditionally offer our customers. And then that will be able to actually put those events into our calendar as well. And then we might have something like email summarization, which is we're monitoring an inbox. We then summarize all of the emails that have come in and give ourselves a daily briefing of the most important emails rather than having to go through every single email. Now, the value here to clients is pretty obvious. It handles tasks requiring some judgment. So traditionally with workflow automation, we were only able to handle deterministic processes, like if this happens or if this contains X word, then do Y process. But actually now with AI and LLMs, we're able to pass off some of the judgment and processes requiring our judgment to AI so that it can augment our processes. It can also help scale some of those things that used to be not very scalable, which is our personalized or personal feeling interactions. And some common AI tasks here are content creation and editing, classification and routing, summarizing some content and extracting data, or just personalization at scale. Think about cold email at scale, personalized to every single lead based on their information. So we've got two examples here, but really the list of examples are endless for this. And you'll see if you're applying for Upwork roles for this kind of work or taking on clients for this kind of work, this is probably 60 to 70% of the work people require. But actually you will need the other workflow patterns and you'll need to understand the other workflow patterns because this is often combined with those in terms of whether they need it in real time, whether they need it in bulk, or whether it's triggered off a webhook like a customer service interaction that needs that system synchronization. So the first example here is actually something that I have created for myself, which is actually, I don't particularly enjoy content writing. So I would set keywords and topics for blog content for my website and my agency. I would then get an LLM node to write a blog summary and title. And you can see this is a bit outdated because it's the conversational agent, which I now would replace with an LLM. But effectively, it would write this blog summary, blog title, and then actually maybe pass to another agent to write out the full content. And then what we might do is upload our blog to WordPress or Webflow and send ourselves the information. But the importance here is actually, I don't need to do the bulk of the hard thinking here. I just need to think about my content clusters and my topic structure. And then the AI goes and does the work for me. And another clear example is our human in the loop process. So we might have a workflow where we receive customer service emails. We ask the AI or the LLM node to actually draft an email response, and we give it some feedback on exactly how it should respond using a business casual tone, warm but professional, etc. And what that's going to do is then it's going to send us an email because often we don't want to rely or we want a human in the loop. We don't want to rely on it to be correct all of the time, or even while we're testing the system, we might want to send it for our own feedback. It's going to send an email to our customer support team, which is going to say, I've drafted this email in response to this customer email. Does this sound right? We're going to then send a message back via Gmail from the message we received saying yes or no. And based on that, we can actually do some sentiment analysis. So you can see there's 3 stages here of the AI assistance or augmentation. We'll do some sentiment analysis. And if I've said yes, it's approved or some words to that effect, I don't need to say those exact words. That's why AI is really powerful here. Then it's going to send the reply automatically to the customer. If not, I'm going to tell it how to revise the email. And the LLM is then going to go based on my feedback and actually revise that original content based on my feedback and send that back round to me so I can approve the second version before finally it is sent off. So those are the 4 workflow patterns. And if you're able to understand those 4 patterns, you'll be ahead of 80% of others. And I'll tell you exactly why that is. So why does this actually matter? Well, if you understand that all workflows, all N8N automations, all workflow automations, all AI automations can be broken down into simply 4 to 5 different patterns. When you're reading client specs or client scopes, or when you're in the meetings with clients and you feel like, oh, maybe I can't do this job because I've never actually done this type of work before. Actually, it's not too dissimilar from the other problem I face, perhaps just in a different context. So often I see people with imposter syndrome feeling like they can't tackle a specific client problem. But actually, when you distill the workflow to its core logic and core concepts, it fits into one of these 4, most likely, workflow patterns. So you should know here that actually all workflows can be broken down. There might be some more complex data transformation in the middle, but simply put, one of these 4 workflow patterns will probably fit 90% of the cases you see in different projects. And what this tells you is actually you only need a limited amount of knowledge to get started. You don't need to know everything. If you understand these 4 workflow patterns and can apply them in different use cases at different levels of complexity, then you can get started today. And once you identify the pattern and you're able to break down the core logic of the underlying business, rather than thinking about the tech steps in between, you can literally build anything. So if you enjoyed this content, check out school.com/scrapes. We've got over 500 entrepreneurs either mastering AI for their own businesses or selling these AI automations to other clients. And we've got a ton of exclusive content exactly like this, designed to help you master and sell in the fastest way possible. Thanks so much for watching.